Key language for presenting data in your visual aids. Signpost the content. Let's look at the data on how this product is. I would like to show you the actual figures for.
The next slide we are going to look at
Examples.
The next slide we are going to look at shows the fluctuation of sales over the past 2 years.
Let's look at the efficiency figures as of the third quarter of this year.
In this Hawaii tourism data, we will cover the latest tourism trends within the last 1 to 3 years. Introducing the visual aids. This flowchart illustrates. In this photograph, I'd like you to note that if you'll look at the screen, you'll see. In this first slide, I'd like to show you. Let me show you a graph which compares. This is a graph which shows. This is a diagram which shows. This final figure summarizes. Examples.
This pie chart illustrates how each product, service, or department contributes to the company revenue.
This graph shows the total arrival data in 2018 to each island, including multi-destination and island arrivals. Pinpointing parts of a visual. If you look at the second column in this table, you'll be able to see. On the left-hand side of the figure. On the right-hand side of the figure. The vertical axis is. The horizontal axis is. At the bottom of this slide, I have summarized the examples.
The vertical axis represents the revenues in billion US dollars, and the horizontal axis shows the fiscal year.
Pinpointing items on a visual. This shaded area represents. For example, this curve shows. This sum in the last column is important because the trend of these two lines is alarming because note the fluctuations marked by these arrows. Sales remained steady from 1997 here until. Describing trends with figures.
Sales went up from $100,000 to $150,000. Sales increased from $100,000 to $150,000. Sales went up by $50,000. Sales increased by $50,000. There was an increase of $50,000 in sales. There was a rise of $50,000 in sales. Sales went down from 100,000 euros to 70,000 euros. Sales fell from 100,000 euros to 70,000 euros. Sales decreased from 100,000 euros to 70,000 euros. Sales went down by 30,000 euros. Sales fell by 30,000 euros. Sales decreased by 30,000 euros. There was a decrease of 30,000 euros in sales. There was a fall of 30,000 euros in sales. Sales remained steady at £150,000 per month. Sales remained stable at £150,000 per month. Monthly sales were $250,000 on average.
Describing upward trends. Notice the dramatic rise in. Notice the dramatic increase in. Notice the dramatic jump in. Notice the dramatic climb in. Notice the dramatic surge in. Examples. Notice the dramatic surge in the sale of iPhones by the end of each year. Describing downward trends. This year's fall in. This year's decline in. This year's drop in. This year's decrease in. This year's slump in. Examples. Notice this year's decline in McDonald's global sales growth from the recent E. coli outbreak linked to its quarter-pounder hamburgers. Describing degrees of change. These totals are fractionally higher than. These totals are marginally higher than. These totals are slightly higher than. These totals are a little higher than. These totals are somewhat higher than. These totals are considerably lower than. These totals are a great deal lower than. These totals are substantially lower than. These totals are dramatically lower than. Examples. These totals are a great deal lower than the sales of Android products in 2013. Describing rates of change. The percentage rose from 10% to 15%. Sales have been falling by about 5 units per week. The amount remained steady at 234,000. Examples. Huawei recorded a massive growth during the quarter, jumping from a 10.6% share in 2017 to 16.7%, making comparisons. Growth this year was faster than in. Growth this year was slower than in. Growth this year was more rapid than in. Growth this year was less rapid than in. This represents the largest since. This represents the smallest since. This represents the highest since. This represents the lowest since. Examples. This represents the lowest fatalities since mid-April peak, even as COVID-19 case counts climbed in 2020. Making contrasts.
Although X increased by 40%, Y decreased by. Despite the fact that X improved, Y continued to. Even though we hired 5 new employees, productivity has decreased by. Competition in Malaysia intensified last year, but we nevertheless made significant gains in. In contrast to our situation last year, this data indicates that we are currently experiencing.
Examples. Although the number of working hours increased, productivity has decreased due to tiredness. Expressing similarity.
This is very similar to the situation we faced with. R&D and marketing each account for 4% of the. Like the other companies in the table, we should be investing a higher percentage of our resources in. I expect that our China and Singapore operations will be similarly affected. Neither the sales department nor the marketing department has experienced this increase in. The patients receiving both the low dose and the intermediate dose responded favorably, as shown in the next slide.
Examples. The Big Island and Kauai have very similar trends in arrivals. Expressing cause and effect.
Due to this increased competition, we will have to give additional discounts to retain our current clients. We have a number of new compounds in our product pipeline because of this increased R&D spending. As a result, the exchange rate has fallen dramatically. Consequently, our profits have also begun to slide.
Example. Due to the improved weather in March, motorbike sales increased by more than 100%. Expressing certainty. Certainty is the ultimate level of probability, where the likelihood becomes a guaranteed fact.
Inflation will definitely rise in the next 6 months. Morale will certainly decline if we reduce commissions. Sales are bound to increase when we launch this new promotional campaign. I'm quite confident that these estimates are on target.
Expressing probability. Probability is a specific estimate indicating how likely an event is to happen, often using percentages or fractions.
20 new graduates will probably join the company this year. We should be able to reduce costs by implementing this new inventory system. I think we're likely to experience a similar decline in the next 2 quarters as well.
Expressing possibility. Possibility is the broadest category that includes all and anything that could happen.
It's possible that they will sign the contract next week. We could lose this contract if we don't reduce the price. This change might be an early indication of toxicity. Sales may improve over the next 6 months depending on the exchange rate. What are the chances of our taking advantage of this opportunity? These numbers suggest.
Expressing improbability.
This economic situation is unlikely to change in the foreseeable future. I doubt that we'll be able to reach these sales targets within this fiscal year. Headquarters is not very likely to approve a proposal with such modest projections. I find it difficult to believe that simply abandoning this project alone will solve all of our problems.
COVID has definitely changed things, and it is unlikely for visitation patterns to change quickly once travel resumes normally. It may take a while before Hawaii could see 2018 or 2019 visitor numbers again.
Visual aids introduction and signposting content example.
Let's look at the efficiency figures as of the third quarter of this year. This pie chart illustrates how each product, service, or department contributes to the company revenue. Now, let's move on to our advertising revenues from the U.S. newspaper. The vertical axis represents the revenues in billion US dollars, and the horizontal axis shows the fiscal year 2007.
Mini presentation examples. As of February 2018, Apple climbed back to the top of the smartphone market for just the third time since losing pole position to Samsung in 2011. With Apple's fluctuating sales, the company's fiercest competitor, Samsung was hopeful to reclaim the top spot sooner rather than later. As this chart illustrates, Samsung's smartphone business is considerably less affected by seasonal fluctuations than Apple's has been in recent years. The iPhone release calendar usually sees new models go on sale in late September or early October, and it nicely aligns with the holiday season. As a result, Apple would have a huge sales spike by the end of each year, but with a dramatically steep slump in subsequent quarters. On this next slide, according to data provided by Canalys, Apple managed to overtake Samsung for the first time in many months, as of January 2019. The Cupertino-based tech giant sold an estimated 71.7 million iPhone during the quarter, securing a 19.8% market share worldwide, down from 20% in the same quarter a year before. Samsung, on the other hand, dropped from 74.2 million units in the previous year to 70.3 million units in Q4, the fourth quarter of 2018, which secured a market share of 19.4%. At the same time, Huawei recorded a massive growth during the quarter, jumping from a 10.6% share in 2017 to 16.7% and 60.5 million units sold in the fourth quarter of 2018. In this Hawaii tourism data, we will cover the latest tourism trends within the last 1 to 3 years on the Hawaiian Islands and provide a series of graphics and summarized data to give you a good idea of what's happening by the numbers. This graph shows the total arrival data in 2018 to each island, including multi-destination and island arrivals. A pie chart is not truly the best format to display the visitor totals for the various islands, as the number of visitors shown in the chart is greater than the true total, as many visitors go to more than one island. Individual Hawaiian Island data. These statistics are arrival data, meaning visitors who arrived in the islands either from the mainland U.S., abroad, or from another island. When viewing these statistics, we encourage visitors to keep the geographic size of the islands in mind. For example, the Big Island and Kauai have very similar trends in arrivals. However, the Big Island is significantly larger geographically speaking than Kauai. In fact, it is larger than all of the other islands combined, so these visitor numbers alone cannot tell the complete story. Kauai and the Big Island may very well have the exact same number of visitors any given month, but the size of the island will also determine how crowded it feels. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic that has taken place during 2020, much of these statistical numbers won't mean as much in terms of projecting the future in the coming months or years. Here is a screen capture of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention showing dramatic declines in fatalities since mid-April peak, even as case counts climbed. While the pink line represents the number of visitors in 2019, and the blue line represents the number of visitors in 2020. It clearly shows a dramatic and unprecedented decline on Japan international passengers, which is a great deal lower than the total passenger count. Following the Butler's model, there are 6 stages of tourist area evolution. The exploration stage, where there are only small numbers of tourists. The involvement stage, where local residents become involved in tourism. The development stage, when heavy advertising creates a well-defined tourist market. The consolidation stage, when the area's economy is tied to tourism. The stagnation stage, when visitor numbers have reached their peak. And the decline scenarios, which is usually when holiday travelers are replaced by weekend or day trippers. But this time, the lockdowns, travel restrictions, and strict quarantine measures have greatly contributed to the major decline. Finally, the rejuvenation scenario, where Hawaii is effectively going to have to reboot tourism-wise, as the pandemic has significantly impacted the state. Typically, Hawaii's unemployment numbers are one of the lowest nationally. COVID has definitely changed things, and it is unlikely for visitation patterns to change quickly once travel resumes normally. It may take a while before Hawaii could see 2018 or 2019 visitor numbers again.
As always, thanks a lot for watching. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. And before you go, give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and click that tiny bell. And don't forget to check out some of our other videos on the channel. On to the next time.